This is KTN News.
Right, welcome back. You're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now we want to talk about the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the IEBC. That is the process of recruiting the next commissioners, especially the chair of the IEBC, the election managers in 2017. It is an issue that is starting to raise temperatures, especially among the political class. Now, Jubilee want, like the panel has decided, to re-advertise for that position because they say they did not have enough information on the candidates. Many of the candidates had not qualified, but two of them had qualified. So there is that conversation now. The opposition is starting to point an accusing finger at Jubilee, saying that they are using underhand tactics to try and postpone the election. Let's take a look at that report.
The country was eager to witness public interviews for the 5 candidates who had been shortlisted for the position of IEBC chairperson. The interviews were slated for Monday and Tuesday next week. Last month, the IEBC selection panel released a timetable which indicated it would present names of 2 successful candidates to the president for nomination to the position of IEBC chairperson on November 30th. But on Friday, the panel made a surprise move when it deferred interviews to a later date and re-advertised the position.
In order to ensure that the decisions of the panel will be informed by relevant references and background checks, it was necessary that the interviews for the position of chairperson be deferred to a later date to be published.
Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi has questioned the independence of the selection panel, which was supposed to be shielded from political interference. The panel's move to postpone the interviews came after some key leaders from Jubilee questioned the list of 5. Mudavadi is accusing the executive of interference.
Tuchunguze sana yale yanafanyika kuhusu IEBC. Hawa walisema tutakuwa na independent selection panel. Wameanza kazi, imefika pahali, wamecancel wale ambao walikuwa shortlisted, wanasema tena waanze new application.
You can't do an advertisement ya position, wale wana apply ni 13. Kutoka hao 13, 8 hawana qualification. Unaacha 5. Unasema those 5 are the best suited to run IEBC. It cannot be. We want people who are hired on their own merit, not because others don't qualify. So we're asking for that advertisement.
The opposition has expressed concern that the former IEBC under Isaac Hassan is still in office and has been carrying out work meant for a fresh IEBC. Delay in the appointment of IEBC chairperson opens a new battlefront between the government and opposition.
Sasa ukifanya timetable kulingana na yale walizungumza, inaonekana labda kuna njama ya kuhakikisha kwamba uchaguzi wa mwaka ujao usifanyike vile unatakiwa ufanyike. Watu waanze kusema kwa sababu tume haiko tayari, waahirishe tena uchaguzi. Hii itakuwa kukaidi katiba na ni hatari. Kwa hivyo sisi kama Wakenya tuwe macho, tuhakikishe kwamba democratic rights zetu hazitadhulumiwa, kwa sababu hatutaki serikali ambayo has annoyed the people, it is trampling on people, wapate any extra day kwa mamlaka.
The select panel says interviews for the position of member of the IEBC will start on 1st December as scheduled. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
So that is a big story, the issue of the IEBC. It is a story about the technical issues, the qualifications, those 13 candidates, about why they were not qualified, why the selection panel could not go with the two that are qualified, the political rhetoric, of course, that is coming with that. It is a story about the timelines as well. That is what Musalia Mudavadi is speaking about, because will the IEBC be ready for the August 2017 general election? If they are not ready, what will be the causes of that? Prof, this process was supposed to be independent by that selection panel. The interviews were to begin tomorrow. They have been postponed. They are going to re-advertise. We did see some Jubilee leaders, including Johnson Sakaja, calling for that re-advertisement. Would you consider this political meddling in that process?
Sure, it's political thuggery, basically. Even what he's saying logically just doesn't make sense. He's talking nonsense in the process of meddling. First and foremost, I sympathize with the chair and the vice chair. They are people I know personally, and they are people of very high integrity. Now, Musundi and Al-Busaidi, you can see their body language is that they are unhappy. Two, it's unfortunate at this point in time that the Jubilee leadership, through mouthpieces like Sakaja, are beginning to meddle in that process. What it might suggest is that these people were not even committed to the change that they wanted. They basically want to hold on to the old commissioners to perpetuate the old habits. Secondly, it's extremely important that this process, the side shows you are seeing, this time are not code generated, all right? Otherwise, because then you will be saying there's nothing here because code is exaggerating and spoiling the landscape. What must be resisted here is perennial meddling. When we get it right once, the next round we get it wrong. And in my opinion, the point Mudavadi is making could be valid, that these are people, because of their political unpreparedness right now, and you can see President Kenyatta has on a panic button to Central Province to go and say, it looks like my popularity is going because of the stealing and other things, and utter deprivation. They are not prepared to defend their seats. So it looks like, I don't know what the actual facts are, it looks quite clear that they are in a partial panic mode. And as a result, they are trampling on everybody's rights.
Brian, is this political interference, or do the Jubilee honchos have a point in saying that, look, you can't just say two people and the ones who are qualified to be IEBC chair?
I think to me, Sakaja has a very valid point, in the sense that when you look at the number of applicants coming to 13 and finding only five being, qualified, and also having some background check issues, I think it's something that needs for us to actually look at where the rain started beating us. To me, the moment they pegged the qualifications for the chair strictly to be a legal person, I think somehow they got it wrong. To me, somebody, tasked with the mandate of, managing the affairs of elections in this country should be a manager. As much as you also has to have that legal sort of understanding, but managerial skills are also very key. And therefore, when they restricted the advertisement to that kind of narrow path of somebody who only has those qualifications, I think they really, blocked a good number of qualified Kenyans who can run the affairs of that body in a very successful way. And therefore, to me, I think they need to revise that clause and maybe, welcome other, qualified discipline members to apply for that role and see whether we can get men and women who can handle that docket in even a more professional way. But leaving that to only lawyers, as much as I have a lot of respect for law as a profession, we also need to, bring on board other discipline members in that role. Again, when you talk about political, interference in the issues of IEBC, Ben, to me, I think Sakaja was speaking as a person. Maybe he got some support from other Jubilee. I can see Prof is not happy with that, but maybe he got some support from other Jubilee lawmakers and all that, and got some impetus that he was actually speaking on behalf of the entire Jubilee family. But having said that, I do not see the kind of any sort of political interference there, when his kind of his statements are really making some sense. Why would we interview only 5, get 3 having background issues in terms of integrity, others having CRB issues and all that, only to leave that, that competition between 2 people? It doesn't make sense. Yet we have over, millions and millions of Kenyans who are qualified to handle that job.
Right.
So therefore, we need to get that right from the beginning.
Right, it's good that we have both sides of the argument. What Sakaja is saying, and the Jubilee leaders, why is it the problem of the selection panel that people are not qualified? And is it actually against the law to have the 2 gentlemen, the two candidates?
It's not against the law. And maybe let's place this in context. Number one, the selection panel, when they're inviting somebody to become the chair, when they're placing adverts, that you have to be a lawyer, it's not up to the Msinde committee to determine whether or not you need to be a lawyer. That's a legal requirement. So that one, there's no room for negotiation unless you go to the National Assembly and review that act. Number 2, for some reason, we trust politicians and lawyers so much that when they were reviewing our electoral laws, we gave them the opportunity to do everything without even seeking any outside help, any expert support. So they came up with the regulations which are time-bound and which are very prescriptive. And as we see today, the timetable which they set out, nobody's going to adhere to it. The one set out by Orengo and Kiraitu Murungi. And then number 3, the way this committee is doing their recruitment, it's a very careless, reckless, uncultured, and unacceptable. This committee knows that in Kenya, elections is an issue of life and death. And they're approaching it in a very casual manner. And the reason why I say that they're very casual in their approach is you've invited people and they have submitted their interest, and you give out the list. You say, these are the people who've been shortlisted. And then a few days later, you say, wait a minute, we are not going to interview because of issues raised by some vetting agencies. Then you begin to wonder, what were you shortlisting? And do they have the support of an expert HR consultant? Because right now, all these people, the names which had been mentioned, they can easily go to the High Court tomorrow and sue the selection panel for defamation, for libel and slander. Because you've already told the entire nation, these are the people we have shortlisted, we are going to interview them. Then a few days later, you say, wait a minute, there's some vetting agencies which are saying that there's a stay near. And then that takes us to the Anti-Corruption Commission. What is the role of the Anti-Corruption Commission in this accumulated matter? Because according to media reports and according to what the panel has indicated, it's because of the Anti-Corruption Commission that a number of those candidates are not going to be given the opportunity to attend the interviews. And we all know that in Kenya, the Anti-Corruption Commission has become a special purpose vehicle. It's not an independent organization. So there's somebody manipulating the puppet from elsewhere. Now that lands us to the elephant in the room. The chairman of IEBC is not an ordinary commissioner. The chairman of IEBC is the returning officer. The principal duty of the chairman of IEBC is to announce who has won the presidential elections. Now, when Johnson Sakaja speaks and when Dwale speaks, and then you imagine that they are speaking on their own motion, that is the highest level of naivety in the political space in Kenya. There is no way you love Dwale speaking without having consulted his boss. There is no way Sakaja would speak without having consulted his boss. Therefore, a rational human being can easily see the 4 corners in a room. You can join the dots and say, there's somebody within Jubilee who is unhappy with the names that were shortlisted. And there's somebody unhappy in Jubilee. Sorry? There's somebody unhappy in Jubilee who said that if any of these names becomes the chairman of IBC and there's mischief, and we want him to play ball, he will not. And it's for that very reason, you remember when Professor Makau Mutua was being interviewed, because people said this guy is very strong, he's not a guy that you can manipulate around, and they said, okay, we're going to kick you out. And it seems to me that the same is happening in IBC. Because even before this team led by Musundi would even tell us the names of the people who have been shortlisted, the same Sakaja, the same Dwale, on a public meeting said that the process has to be revisited once again. So you begin to wonder, how come one side of the political operatives in Kenya, Jubilee, has got a very specific and deliberate interest on who becomes the chairman and not the other person? Then it leads us to one conclusion, that Jubilee is happy with the status quo, that they want to drag this to the last mile, Because again, there were conversations that are, if you're not able to get the new commissioners in place and a new chairman in place, the current commission will preside over the elections. And nobody in Kenya will be very happy more than Jubilee that the current commission presides over those elections. So whatever Musalia Mudavadi is raising is a very germane issue that actors need to take into active consideration.
Musalia Mudavadi is not a boy of the street. He's been in the castle for 30 years. He knows how the kings dress. He knows how they change clothes. Now, by changing clothes here, I mean exercise of hypocrisy, posturing. Now, in my opinion, I find Brian's argument to be very polite. You are being unkind to the listeners, to the viewers. Because the truth is this, very, very carefully. When Mbadi speaks, all right, he's echoing what Raila is saying. When Junet speaks, he's echoing what Raila thinks, all right? Now, quite clearly, Sakaja was off the street. Duale was off the street. These are people who have been brought and given specific assignments to keep backing. And on all issues, you can see the Waiguru issue and other issues. These are backing dogs.
I want us to get into the issue of the IEBC. Let me start with you, Prof, very quickly. The politics aside, the timelines that we're talking about, the timelines that the IEBC has for itself, the timelines that were set by that joint parliamentary committee, what is going to happen? Because it seems that the panel is not going to meet or to do its specific roles by those timelines. What happens if those timelines pass?
Basically, what has happened is that the legislation that was collectively prepared by Orengo and the Kiraito's team has been bastardized, which is basically what Jubilee did not want in the beginning. So what is likely to turn out is that these guys, court is going to say, if you want to implement this thing the way you are going, then it's not implementable. Let's go back and do it again. So the deadline for elections is clearly in danger at the moment. The point that Mudavadi is making is fundamental. He's seeing well beyond the noise. And it's important at this point that the president comes out from the point of view of securing, right, his legacy. It's important that he comes out. This is in the interest of the country, not in the interest of a party. It is the interest of the country. It is a responsibility to come out and say, look, consult quickly with the Kinarailas and say, let's do the right thing. But at the moment, the elections are actually in danger.
Is there a danger of Jubilee forcing the election to be postponed or having the current IEBC commissioners continue in office, which is something the opposition is totally against?
Yeah, I think I do echo Prof's sentiments that the election date is in jeopardy in the sense that owing to what is actually cooking right now, I think it is the high time that the Joint Select Parliamentary Committee is actually reconvened again to chart the way forward now that we have new emerging issues, especially the timelines that we are talking about. Having said that, look at the nature of this coming exercise in terms of, re-advertising again, interviewing these people and again getting the person of the right qualifications, sending him to the president for approval to the parliament and then to the president, I think is a tall order. And looking at the timeline that's remaining, 9 months actually to the elections right now, it's quite a congested calendar, and therefore if the joint parliamentary group can actually sit down and find a way of addressing the issue at hand, either addressing the issue of the election date, pushing it a little bit further, maybe to December, that is something that can perhaps give us a solution to the problem at hand.
What's the solution?
Wow, it's interesting. There's a section in Kenya that wants us to move the election to December. And moving the election to December, or even to 2018, or even 2022, would be a perfect idea if it was not an act of human beings, if it was an act of God. There's an earthquake, there are rivers are bursting, banks everywhere, then you can move the election. But right now, there is a cartel within Jubilee that wants to move this election. And it was right from the word go. These lawyers that we trusted and politicians to come up with the amendment bill, you could see that there was mischief right from the word go. That the bill did not even have a commencement date. It had to wait for a number of weeks for it to set itself in motion. So you can see clearly that these lawyers and politicians we trust to take Kenya to the next level have done a shoddy job. And where we sit today is for President Kenyatta to realize that Kenyans want to have the elections next year in August, not a day later. And he needs to give this process goodwill. He sits in a very unique position that is running the government, is in charge of the states, and is the head of Jubilee. He needs to give this process goodwill, so that if this commission needs to do their work 24 hours, whatever needs to be done so that we sit within that timetable, because people just are disappointed, and they don't want to give a court the opportunity to go back to the streets again, because they see some of the MPs. I overheard Ben Kitili saying that they're prepared to go back to the streets, because they say, number one, the commissioners who are seated in office right now, they're seated there illegally, and they'll go back to the streets to push for these guys to go out.
Would you say, 13 people applied for the position of chairman. Yes. 8 of them are not qualified. 3 of them have issues with the EACC or KRA background checks. Could it be that Kenyans don't want this job anymore?
No, the issue here is, according to Jubilee, the right person did not apply for the job. When the right person applies for the job, then the process is going to be free and fair. Because, for instance, when these guys were doing the shortlisting, it beats any sense of logic that you can do shortlisting without having consulted the vetting agencies. So what is the shortlisting? What shortlisting are you doing if you have not sought clearance from the Anti-Corruption Commission, from the credit rating agencies, from the Higher Education Loans Board? You've published the names, and then somebody says, wait a minute, all those names, I don't like any. Do something.
So Jubilee is up to no good.
Of course, they have to prove to this world that they mean well for the nation. Because the only people who have said this thing must be suspended are Jubilee operatives.
There is an important point, please, if I could make one. One, first of all, if you have 5 people that are left to be interviewed, that is the standard number in the public service. That when you shortlist and you have got a minimum of 5. I've even attended some interviews where we have been a minimum of 5. The process has gone ahead and an appointment has been made. What has happened in some of those situations is that once the wrong person, and these are things I can substantiate, has been selected by the panel, all right? Somebody comes and says there are only 5 applicants, there should have been more. This is a very important job. It is the same argument that has been developed in this particular case, partly by vested interests in the electoral process.
Yes.
Not necessarily in Jubilee alone, but there are multiple players in that whole system. 2, there is something Dismas said that I consider important. The vetting panel needs to be provided with expert technical support, particularly HR. Because what we are using now are instinctive assessments, using a checklist and where the level of judgment can be suspect. There is also a third point. Sometimes, and it often happens through EACC, they'll give a recommendation about a candidate that is deliberately distorted. I have myself received the recommendation, and I've gone back and said, are these the questions that I was supposed to answer in order to get the recommendation? So it clearly suggests that right in the EACC itself, and probably in other agencies, the players have tentacles everywhere. Because these people who are rejected after being shortlisted, it means they were using information from hindsight.
Ben, just for you to contribute a little bit, I think when you hear voices saying that the exercise should be repeated, I think to me it offers that opportunity for Kenyans to give their chance to be given this mantle to be in charge of the IEBC issues in this country. But again, that actually takes us to the issue of these checklist documents that one has to be cleared to be able to be given the job. Apart from corruption issues, when you look at issues to do with the CRB, for instance, to me, I think we need the umtatas of this country to go to the court and get more interpretation on the validity of such documents. For example, precisely talking about the CRB, when somebody has defaulted, a certain sort of facility, maybe owing to the fact that maybe he lost a job or is unable to service that facility, I think should not be used as a basis to knock someone out of a job that perhaps qualifies on other parameters. And therefore, that's one of the issues that perhaps the commission, the Musudi-led commission, should also address. Apart from corruption, which is the ESC-based issues to do with the HELB and KRA, those are things that they need to come out, that need policy sort of interpretation so that we understand at which threshold should someone be considered, having not been cleared on this, but still can manage to get that particular job and all that. And therefore, when you talk about, seeing this affair as being a Jubilee, encroached, I think the Musudi-led team also emphasized the need to give this job to minority groupings.
All right.
Groupings in the first
Changing
place.
rules while you are in play.
Wait a minute. That's why I want to bring this notion of Jubilee interfering as far-fetched, because they said they wanted to give this job to minority groupings, communities that are not part of the big fish and all that, so that we could also give that avenue for, non-partisan and all that. And therefore, they were very clear from the word go. Now that they never got that person.
That is political interference.
Yeah, but again, and Ben, probably the advert should have read that if you come from a majority, what is referred as a majority community, you need not apply. Not that you've applied, then you're said to come from a majority community, which is a very amorphous term.
They did agree.
And then you're told you don't qualify simply because maybe you are a Kikuyu or you are Luo.
The joint committee of parliament set us up for all these failures.
Exactly.
But I think the problem we have with this committee is they've not relied on expert human resource expertise or skills. Like, for instance, I've got friends who have been identified to be commissioners. They've not even received a phone call from this team, not an email. Everything they see is in the newspapers. So you wonder, what kind of a recruitment agency is so solid that if somebody has qualified for a position, you don't even give them a call, and you don't even send them an email?
Alone. Yeah. Final comments, 30 seconds each. What's the way forward?
The way forward is very simple. Let the president take his responsibility of providing national guidance at this point in time, so that we don't fall back, all right, to coercive methods to solve a problem that could have been solved if it was provided with forward-looking leadership.
All right. Brian?
To me, I think the joint parliamentary select team should actually reconvene. They need to actually get it from the first go, and they offer that kind of direction. It's messy because whatever Jubilee says, this court has a different opinion, and therefore we need to operate, the selection process should operate from a premise that has been agreed upon by the two teams. That's all I can say.
All right.
Well, again, to get that joint parliamentary select committee in place, it requires, again, a long, tedious process. So to avoid all that pain and unnecessary torture, it's for President Kenyatta to give it a goodwill, and we'll be in a very good place.
All right. That is the issue of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, a very big issue. Interviews were set to begin tomorrow. That is not going to happen. That position will be re-advertised. I think it has been re-advertised already. Prof is calling on the president to take charge and provide leadership in this issue. There is a call to reconvene the Parliamentary Joint Committee. There are accusations towards the selection panel that they are not, carrying this process out in a very professional way. And there's also, of course, the accusations of political meddling by Jubilee, that they want a certain person in especially the job of the chairman of the IEBC. Those are the issues that are currently ongoing. It is a story that we are keeping an eye on. We shall continue to follow it up for you. Let's now change gears and focus on a little bit of politics before we round up the show. That is, of course, both Jubilee and CORD politics. Let's first of all take this story by Duncan Haemba about the altercations between Jubilee and CORD, where CORD has been accusing Jubilee of a lot of things. Graft has been the main issue in the past few weeks. Let's take a look.
After receiving heavy bashing from government for playing what is said to be politics of convenience on war against corruption, opposition chiefs have responded in equal measure.
This is a strange country where hard-working people are villains and rogues, thieves and robbers are heroes. We must change.
That was a message out of Bomet. Atoboy, because she knows it. She sincerely knows it. And she will therefore become one of our national heroes or heroines if she takes the bull by the horn. So that we are not seen to beat about the bush about this subject of corruption.
But looking the way Kenya is and what is going on in this great country, I have no doubt that we are winning the next elections.
And they narrowed in on Deputy President William Ruto, who began the political tongue-lashing against CORD.
When you look at this country, people who have never even been clerks in any office in their lives, like William Ruto, are now dollar billionaires.
Because of what is happening in the Jubilee government, people think that he is a thief. And it is upon him to prove that he is not one.
On IEBC's reform process, CORD claims it's the government intentionally derailing the process.
We need to remind them, sisi hatujachoka. Na safari hii Wakenya wakirudi mitaani, it will not be the same. It will not be the same. Kwa hivyo mambo haya ambayo yalikubaliwa yasije yakadharauliwa.
And they know, if they don't, we want them to know that we have the capacity to bring this country to a standstill if we wish.
Elections must take place in 2017, in August. There is no postponement of those elections. But we must have elections that are free and fair. Kama wamekataa kutumia zile sheria ambao wakina Alwale na Mudama na sisi sote tulitunga ikapitishwa kwa bunge, you better leave them to have their elections, and we'll have our elections in August next year, and we'll announce who is the President of the Republic of Kenya.
The leaders were at the Bomas of Kenya, where Ford Kenya's General Council endorsed its party leader Moses Wetangula as their presidential candidate.
Sisi kama wana Ford Kenya tumesema weta mpaka wapi? Mpaka wapi?
The party also ratified expulsion from the party elected leaders who have crossed over to Jubilee. Just like its coalition partner in ODM, the Ford Kenya delegates have also endorsed their party leader Moses Wetangula to contest for presidency, even as it remains unclear as to when the opposition team will name its flag bearer. Duncan Hemba, KTN at Bomas.
All right, so the opposition there, of course, in that event by Ford Kenya, raising a lot of issues against Jubilee. Obviously, we've talked about most of them, but Prof, the issue we were discussing earlier, the issue of the IEBC, what do you read from the CORD leaders? What are they saying?
Quite frankly, I don't like the tone of the things they are saying. They are saying several things. One of them, they are threatening uncontrollable violence. That's, you heard it. I'm sure you heard it. Two, some of them are expressing a genuine desire that since we had already agreed on the rules of engagement, let it take its course. Don't interfere with it. Then there is a group that is clearly, anytime now, with or without the rules, is even engaging in reasonable comments, things that under normal circumstances, even me who uses words liberally would want to hesitate. Now, My proposal with regard to this thing, now I am back to what was being proposed, that we need collective goodwill from the president as a head of state now, not as head of Jubilee, as head of state, that his 40 million people, all right, are in danger of being incited to violence because there has been an allegation of interference and mismanagement. He must take the lead. Two, it's extremely important then that he calls back other stakeholders and they compare notes as a way of moving the process forward. Because in this particular case, the opposition can't move it forward alone, the president can't move it forward alone, and his team can't move it forward alone. So it's extremely important that what I call informed reason be put into place to replace the emotions that are beginning to creep in.
Right. Yeah, Brian, I'm not hearing the opposition leaders specifically talking about this issue of the interviews and the advertisement.
Yes.
Why is that?
I think that's where I wanted to pick my reference from, in the sense that they are bashing the government right, left, the center without giving solutions. What code the leaders ought to give is durable solutions to the problem at hand. We understand that whatever agreement was made was domiciled from agreements that were done at the joint IEBC, parliamentary select team. And now that there are some discourses in between the implementation of what they agreed, it would be reasonable if they put their minds together and offer solutions to the problem at hand. Why am I saying this? Giving rhetorics and threats, which might, lead to blood spillover in this country, I think it's not the way to go. What we need to understand is that elections is a very sensitive issue, and it can break the political and social fabric of a society, and therefore it would be incumbent of the stakeholders, especially the led team members, to ensure that they also participate in offering what they feel should be the key solutions to the problems that we are experiencing, starting with the issues of the IEBC. The issue, if they feel that, yes, we have a gap in terms of addressing the issues of getting someone who would lead the IEBC, what they ought to do is actually to give sort of engagement. It's a throw-take sort of issue that they should give to the Jubilee or the government of the day, so that the Jubilee bites and gives a sort of feedback to the problem, so that after that we can see two teams coming together to discuss the issue and offer a solution at hand.
What Brian is saying is very interesting, almost amusing. There is a solution which was put together by the team led by Orengo and Kiraitu Murungi. And they agreed on a timetable, they agreed on how everything is supposed to be done. So expecting CORD to give another solution is going to, what lawyers say, a fishing expedition. There's really nothing you are doing. Right now what we need is goodwill from the president to ensure that we've got predictable systems, and the outcome needs to be unpredictable. But right now, the only thing which seems predictable is the outcome. Right now, people are just swimming all over. We don't know what is happening. We don't know who is in charge. You don't know whether this IEBC selection panel is being run by the Anti-Corruption Commission or it's being run by Jubilee. So things are just muddled up. And the only thing remaining right now is goodwill from President Kenyatta, nothing more. Because again, if you want to go to parliament, then these elections are going to be held in 2023.
All right. We'll stay on that conversation, but before we do that, let's take a look at another issue, another facet of this Jubilee versus CORD kind of rhetorics, if you may, and that is, of course, the battle of wits between the Deputy President William Ruto and the Governor of the County of Mombasa, Governor 001, that is Ali Hassan Joho. They have been at each other's necks for weeks now, utterance after utterance. Let's take a look at that in more perspective.
Wale mandugu zangu hapa Mombasa wanajaribu kushindana na mimi nataka niwaambie, I am not available for any contest with you. I am not available. Mimi sina, kama uko na bahasha ama sijui ni sanduku ama sijui ni gunia, hiyo ni yako. Mimi sifanyi biashara hiyo. Mimi namuogopa Mungu.
Mwaka wa 22 mpaka mwaka wa 27 William Ruto. Mwaka wa 27 mpaka mwaka wa 2032 William Ruto. Hiyo mimi nakwambia haiwezekani, my friend. Hatukubali.
So we did talk about diplomacy here and bravado.
Yes.
What is your take on, let's start with this one, the battle between the two gentlemen?
When you look at the behavior of the deputy president and the Mombasa governor, it's very clear that this has got nothing to do with Jubilee politics or code politics. This is about personal business interests that are being compromised. And it all goes back to the dry port which is supposed to be put up in Naivasha. So for poor Wanjiku or Chebet, or in this case Adija in Mombasa, who thinks that Governor Joho and the deputy president are engaging in this kind of war because of their selfish interest, that's not the case. We all know for a fact that politicians in Kenya are the principal players in the private sector. So all these two politicians are said to have business interests within the port. And the moment you establish a dry port in Naivasha, then probably the control that Governor Ali Hassan Joho has had in Mombasa is going to be compromised. And more important, there are about 50,000 people who are going to lose employment opportunities in Mombasa. So really that's the crux of this matter. It's got nothing to do with Jubilee ideology or Code ideology, but it's really about business interests. But for poor Wanjiku, because of these incests that we spoke earlier on, we are made to believe that Governor Joho is fighting for us and the deputy president is fighting for us.
But you can't give the governor some benefit of doubt, and a lot of people will be affected if the port...
Well, you know, the governor, for the governor has got a very solid case. There are these 50,000 people who are going to be affected, are probably, majority of them are his voters. So for him, he's coming out to fight for his voters, but they do not earn as much as he makes from that port of Mombasa. But I think more important, again, sorry for indulging this view, which is unacceptable.
You have evidence of his businesses.
Well, that's what I say that it has been said, because I don't have those court records. But I think it's important for the president and, or rather the deputy president and Governor Joho to behave in a very civil manner instead of going to these insults that you're an academic giant, you're an academic dwarf. Really, we don't think that's the way to go with these kind of conversations. And it's important that when people are coming up with these business decisions, that we are moving the port, say, from, you are creating a dry port in Naivasha, you should be considerate and give the people from Mombasa the first opportunity to re-engineer their business. Because you can imagine how many guys have invested in those long-distance trucks that are going to lose their opportunities? They should be given some sort of a good stepping stone. And at this stage, one needs to give Governor Joho credit for coming out to fight for his 50,000 residents in Mombasa, while we know that at the end of the day, really, he's the main man. But for a moment, you see that he's fighting for his voters.
The issue of the dry port is just one of those issues that have been the bone of contention between the two leaders. It started during the Malindi by-election. But what would you attribute this war of words between the two?
I think recently you can tell that Joho has lost huge business, opportunities at the coast, with some sort of interference that he attributes to the DP and all that, and he feels that his business woes are having the DP has something to do with what he's going through in terms of business tribulations and all that. And again, you could see, apart from the business aspect, there's also the issue of 2022 presidential elections and all that. Joho has been on record that he's also ogling for that seat, and he has gone bare knuckle to take on the DP, and he has actually depicted him as a corrupt and unelectable leader. And now the DP is also taking a charm offensive on the same, depicting Joho as also a corrupt and somebody who cannot be entrusted with the leadership. And therefore, this has something to do with 2022 politics, and therefore, each is trying to depict the opponent in a negative way.
All right.
Actually, it's a very...
Does it have anything to do with political ideology at all?
First of all, these two are political grandchildren and grandchildren of Moi. Joho is brought up by Sharif Nasir. All right? Ruto is brought up by Barngetuny and Co. Now, what you are seeing are two people with both
descendants of
descendants of that of Moi, remnants of that Moi era, who, through manipulation of the system for both of them, have acquired considerable financial muscle. Fairly and unfairly, they have been able to make some money. Now, what they are doing is that each one of them is telling the other, I'm better than you. They're like children. He's telling the other, I'm better than you. Now, there was a signal that came through Deputy President Ruto's presentation. He was talking about containers, symbolically talking about containers of money, which means the battle was not political. It was business. That was the first sort of hint I got that it was business. But in general, in my view, both of them have both business and political bad manners. All right, both of them. It's just that Ruto's bad manners are more in the public domain than Joho's. But I think these are people from whom we're going to hear a lot of punching, counter-punching from, and most
all
of
the
it,
way to 2020.
most of it below the belt.
All right.
But again, you notice when the deputy president was using what a gentleman may refer to as derogatory terms on Governor Joe, Jubilee audience did not actually clap for him. They were booing the deputy president. Maybe you should read from that body language that when you go to Mombasa, you need to treat Joe with a bit of respect. In as much as you may think that he's an academic dwarf, and maybe Professor needs to explain to us in this context what is the meaning of academic dwarf, you need to treat elected leaders with certain levels of respect. Right. Because, you know, the moment you say that Governor Joe Ajatosha is an academic dwarf, ile biashara mimi sitaki, mimi naogopa Mungu, then indirectly what you are doing is you are insulting and stepping on the toes of the people who for some reason said Joe is the right man to lead us.
Yes, and it brings to the fore that discussion about Jubilee's inroads at the cost or lack of it.
Yeah, in fact, there is also a dangerous outlet that the Ruto is getting into. If he begins to focus a lot on this academic.
All right.
He's himself in a bit of a tussle right now about academic, I want to say. So that is a dangerous one to open.
All right.
As they say, people in glass houses should not throw stones.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Let's take a look at the county of Murang'a politics, where the Member of Parliament for Kigumo, Jamle Kamau, did launch his bid to become the Murang'a governor in 2017. Let's take a look. Karen Derry was in Murang'a yesterday.
Mombi grounds was a buzz of activity as the launch of Jamle Kirongo Kamau's manifesto got underway. Kamau, who has been the Member of Parliament for the Kigumo constituency for the last 10 years, is now not shy about announcing his bid for the gubernatorial position, where he says he is ready to unseat the incumbent Mwangi wa Iria. The two have recently locked horns publicly. And to add to the political intrigues in Murang'a County, the Deputy Governor Gakure Monyo served as the MC during Jamle Kamau's manifesto launch. Other elected leaders who publicly showed their support for Jamlek Irongo Kamau included the Murang'a women representative Sabina Chege, Murang'a Senator Kembi Gitura, and 3 members of parliament. Murang'a has 7 MPs and 4 were present at Mombi grounds, including Kamau himself. Kamande Wambugo Maragwa MP, Alice Wahome Kandara MP, and Irongo Kangata Kiharo MP.
Wairia anainama, anainuka, akaangalia, akaona Kamau, akatoroka.
Other leaders who graced Jamlek Kamau's function included Leader of Majority Eden Duale, Nairobi Women Representative Rachel Shebesh, Buri Amburi, Tigania East MP, and James Mwangi Gakuya MP, Embakasi North. 10 Murang'a MCAs were also present.
Jamlek ni mkazi wa Murang'a na hako na haki kikatiba kuandaa hii sherehe. Ndugu yetu wa Iria, pia wewe andaa sherehe, tuje tukusikize.
Mwangi wa Iria, na kubeg, let us do mature politics. Let us do mature politics.
Mheshimiwa Jamlek, you must agree that we must sit together and talk about the Murang'a we want.
And we cannot pride ourselves in this county of having made even 1 inch of tarmac in Murang'a County. it is a big shame. When you give me your votes, I am promising to you, siku ya leo, to upgrade at least 100 kilometers of road across the county to bitumen standards. Tarmac.
Jamlek Kamau has promised to deliver to the people of Murang'a County. The cornerstones of his manifesto include infrastructure, water and health. Definitely, the political temperatures in Murang'a County are getting heated. The excitement is palpable. Even as the people of Murang'a themselves hope that the politicians coming out to vie for different positions will indeed fulfill their promises and reach out to the people of Murang'a to empower their lives. Carol Derry, KTN News, Mombi Grounds, Murang'a County.
Right, County there in the county of Murang'a. Very quickly as we end up, Prof, what we saw there, are those Jubilee bigwigs kind of endorsing one side of the Jubilee? Because Mwangi area is also a Jubilee, governor. And is this, an indication of what we are to see, some titanic battles in those Jubilee strongholds?
First of all, where is IEBC? This is not campaign time to launch manifestos. That's a primary violation. Right. And if IEBC had teeth, this is the time it should be stopping things like this.
I disagree with that.
That's one. Two, in my view, if you begin generating heat, internal heat at this point in time, when you already have problems with just naming a campaign team, what are you saying? You want to raise temperatures from 40 to 50? Quite a few people are likely to be burnt, some of them accidentally. Now, if you look very carefully, in terms of the people that were attending, a lot of them were from elsewhere. So is the language that they are speaking in that meeting the same as the language Wanjiku is speaking on the ground vis-a-vis Wairia, who also says he supports...
But that was on the ground, Prof.
That's what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is this.
All right.
You can call the people who support you and you say, I'm on the ground.
All right.
If you have 3,000, 10,000 people who support you or who you pay on that day
to come
and attend the meeting.
Brian, the Deputy Governor, Gakure Monyo, was there.
Yes.
This is, what do you take on this?
I think this shows the kind of frictious relationship between governors and their DGs and all that. It's not only in Murang'a, but it's evident in Machakos, it's evident in most of the counties that we have been treated in Kisii also and all that. And therefore, it's not an exceptional issue to see a DG actually going against the wishes of his master and all that. And again, just to touch something on what Prof has said in terms of the jurisdiction of the IEBC, to me, the IEBC, when you want to say that the IEBC should come in handy to address the issue of early campaigns, I think Hassan Mohamed, is it Hassan, the IEBC boss, so to speak, is on record saying that the IEBC has no jurisdiction, has no mandate to control what people do before the electioneering period has been set. It's like actually deny a football team to do warm-ups before an actual match actually starts. And therefore, the IEBC has no mandate on that. Just to go back again to this one, when you talk about heightened political temperatures coming to hand, I do agree with you that it's hurting the economy. It's not good for development of this country, and it's setting a bad precedence. What I'm trying to say is that all other counties are likely to follow suit, and so to sustain campaigns at county level with that kind of vigor from this time all the way to 2017, maybe December or August, whichever comes, I think it will be very, very hurting to the economy of those counties.
All right, thanks, Brian. This one has a lot of things to react to.
Yes, I can see. Number one, Ben, that rally in Murang'a tells you we have two Jubilees. There is a Jubilee A and Jubilee B. Jubilee A is what the Americans would call establishment political party, the Republicans. The people operate from Washington. Most of the people you've seen in that rally operate from Nairobi. That the people who are either at the National Assembly or the Senate. Then now there's going to be the Jubilee B made up of the county governors the people who are said to be relating with Wanjiku, but who stand accused by the Auditor General of having stolen Wanjiku's resources. And then when you look at that function clearly now, the person who smiled all the way to the bank yesterday was Peter Munya and PNU, because there's going to be so much hit between this Jubilee A and Jubilee B. And as Professor has indicated, there are going to be bans, and they may even go beyond the one of Mumias up to 80%. And Munya now is going to be the person to be giving those people alternative tickets. Because you can be sure wherever Jamlek is and wherever Wairia is, Wairia knows for a fact that the party primaries for Jubilee are not going to be free and fair. Right. How can they be free and fair if you've come with the entire decision-making team from Nairobi? So I suspect last evening, I suspect last evening, Munya received so many phone calls.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. That is where we leave it on this morning's edition of Sunday edition, this 27th day of November 2016, less than 9 months to the 2017 general elections. A lot of things not in place, not least the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the next set of commissioners, especially the next chair of the IEBC. That is a conversation, a story we shall continue to keep an eye on here on the broadcast and here on KTN. Many thanks for watching. Thanks Dismas Mokua, Brian Mutie, and Professor Oeri Tumwami.